Hi, so welcome to Section 2, Lecture 5. In this lecture, we're going to expand on the various stages of waking and sleep to kind of get a more thorough understanding of the significance of each, why they're important, and what we need to know about different stages like light sleep, what it is and what it actually is, what it is not, what it's useful for, what its purpose is. Deep non-REM sleep, which scientists believe is necessary for human survival, necessary for survival of organic beings like animals, and why it's important, where it's concentrated in our sleep patterns, and REM sleep, which is very, very unique, and why it's significant. We'll talk about that as well. So by now, if you watched the last lecture, you probably have a good idea of how we move in and out of the different stages both when we are awake and asleep. We know about beta waves when we're awake, the short high frequency waves. Alpha waves, which are longer, drawn out. We can reach that stage through meditation, breathing exercises. We know about delta waves and theta waves, which are the more drawn out slow waves that contribute to deep non-REM sleep, very similar to being in a coma. There also is a fun kind of anecdote I like to tell of a childhood friend of mine that I went to school with, and he joined the Navy SEALs, and he tells me about they have 4 states of wakefulness, Navy SEALs do, and we were having a cup of coffee back in my hometown in San Diego, and I was just so amazed at his awareness. Like, he's so aware of his surroundings. We were having coffee, and I can just talk to him. I say, "Who's behind you?" And without even looking behind, he can describe, the family sitting behind us. He can describe every single person perfectly, what they're wearing, how they're dressed, and it's just a fun story I like to tell because Navy SEALs actually have their own anecdotal states of awareness during waking hours, and they call them the 4 states of awareness, which are, the first one is the white state, the yellow state, the red state, and the black state. So the white state is kind of a catatonic state. It's where you're not really aware of your surroundings. It's like when you're walking on the street on your iPhone and you walk into a signpost or something like this. So that's kind of one where many of us kind of fall into. And when I'm awake, I try to make sure that I'm not in the white state where I'm just zoned out. I want to show up. I want to be present in the moment. So one thing that can help you do that is to get to the alpha states, which are accomplished through meditation, and they refer to that as a yellow state, where it's similar to when you travel, when you're in a new environment and you're suddenly, the senses kind of pop out more, you're more observant of what's going on, like all around you. And then there's the red state, which Navy SEALs get into when they're about to prepare for a mission. If they're in a helicopter, about to jump out of a plane, they work themselves up into this red state, and suddenly, their heart pounds faster, and they're ready to just jump out of the plane. And then there's the black state, which is a state where they're so hyper-focused that they kill everything that moves. And I don't know necessarily if there's actual scientific evidence for these various Navy SEAL states, but I still think it's fun to think about, and especially kind of complements what we're talking about here when we talk about the circadian rhythm. We know that our levels of energy, awareness, alertness are always rising and falling. And I think when you can categorize your states of wakefulness into these different states, I think it's pretty useful and eye-opening. Okay, so fun anecdotes aside, let's get into the sleep stages, and then we're going to expand on those. So the first one obviously is light sleep, and we spend more than half of our sleeping time in light sleep. This is the period in the ultradian cycle that is closest to awakening and the easiest time for us to wake up. It's the closest to the normal beta waves, the short frequency waves that we experience during waking. Usually we're in alpha wave state during light sleep, or the theta wave state. And perhaps the most important thing to know is that light sleep is not to be confused with actually being awake. So you don't reduce the percentage of light sleep by reducing the time that it takes to fall asleep. That could be a common misconception for a lot of people. Rather, light sleep is sort of like the bridge that connects all the various different stages, from waking to deep sleep to REM sleep. So it provides a critical role as far as helping us to make those transitions. It is more correct to say that true quality sleep is high efficiency. So that means few or no nighttime awakenings and features a good distribution among the different stages of sleep. Because it's so easy for people to experience light sleep, it's the first sleep stage that we fall into when we fall asleep. As we age, the brain tends to spend more time in light sleep. As we age, we tend to produce less melatonin. All right, the next one, deep non-REM sleep. Now, this is the form of sleep that the brain prioritizes. Scientists have concluded that it's essential for life. It's called slow wave sleep, which is the most similar state to being in a coma. It's mostly concentrated in the first two ultradian cycles. That's like the first 3 hours of sleep. And whether you sleep 4 hours or 10 hours, you still average around 100 minutes of deep non-REM sleep. Now, this is not a stage that you want to awake from. So if you set an alarm and it wakes you during non-REM sleep, it's very counterproductive. The transition from deep waves to short waves should be done gradually and naturally. So if you go straight from the deep delta waves straight to alpha waves where you're awake, you're going to be really groggy for maybe about an hour or so after that. This stage of sleep is essential for the immune system, muscle and cell growth, metabolic function, a lot of the most important physical mechanisms that our body, physical functions that our body needs to perform. So here's the brainwave chart again, and where you see the delta at the bottom, the delta waves, these are the slow wave sleeps that characterize deep non-REM sleep. And again, it's not a stage that you want to wake from, but it's very, very important for human survival. It's also necessary for physically rejuvenating the body, letting our bodies rest and recuperate, getting that feeling of renewal from sleep. And it's also the best cure for illness. So if we have a cold or any type of sickness, the best cure is to catch up on your sleep, like doctors say. And the reason that is so is because a lot of important healing functions occur during deep non-REM sleep for the body. Okay, next one. REM sleep. Now, this is a really interesting sleep stage. It's called the third state of existence for the brain, and it differs completely from waking states and other sleep stages. It's called paradoxical sleep because the brain is very active during this period. We experience rapid alpha brain waves, very similar to a waking state during this stage. And before REM sleep was discovered in 1953, it was the popular belief that the brain and the body essentially shuts off during sleep. But now we realize that REM sleep is a unique aspect of the human experience. Now, we enter into REM sleep in pretty much all of the different sleep cycles that we fall into. But we transition into it from light sleep, and the concentration of REM sleep is greater in the latter ultradian cycles before waking, so maybe the fourth or fifth ultradian cycle. And this is a really, really interesting stage of sleep because it's the main period of sleep that accounts for dreams. And it's also when our brains are kind of being at their most creative and they perform important functions for memory and learning. It's easiest state to experience lucid dreams because our brains are so active during this state. And babies actually spend up to 8 hours a day in REM sleep, so it's believed that this stage is very important for brain development. Now, creative types often put their brain to work to come up with creative solutions during REM sleep. Jack Canfield has a video on this, and what they do is they spend time thinking about ideas or projects that they're working on during the daytime. They'll spend time thinking about it before bedtime, before they fall asleep. And then during REM sleep, the brain will kind of recall these conscious thoughts and memories and then go to work to explore creative solutions for the problem, for the project at hand. So it's very useful for that state, for that purpose. So if you want to be more productive, one thing you can do is before you fall asleep, just kind of think about what you want your brain to work on, what problems you want it to solve at nighttime, before you fall asleep, and then you'll wake up in the morning and you'll feel like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to work on this. Now, the last thing to know is that while REM sleep seems to be important for brain function, especially memory and learning, it is not necessary for physical survival. Thank you for watching Section 2, Lecture 6. I will see you in the next section. Take care until then.